Noon hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Exciting day. We are here at John Watson Chevrolet in O-Town. Having a great day. I actually just got off a conversation with Corey Watson, who is one of my favorite people. Does an amazing work here. And if you haven't been out to the John Watson Chevrolet in O-Town, then you're missing out. I am sitting amongst some of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen in my life. We've got a car show that's going to be coming up. I think it's their 12th, maybe their 13th annual old car show that is just incredible. And I'm sitting, I bet, Clay, what do you think? I'm probably surrounded by, what, close to $1 million in cars? Easily? I feel intimidated. Like I've got the chills up and down my spine because of the cars that currently surround me. But we got an incredible car show that's going to be coming up. And anybody that lives in Ogden, you know the John Watson brand. They are fantastic, great friends of ours on the zone, great friends of mine. I've spoke at their Player of the Week annual benefit a couple of times. I love it because they recognize amazing athletes in the community, and you get an opportunity to speak to the kids and speak from the heart and represent John Watson and everything that they represent. So love being here, and I'm going to try not to lean on any one of these cars, Corey. Corey says lean on whatever one I want. Yeah, right. He said climb on top of it. No chance I'm climbing on top of these beautiful
Just
Camaros,
don't
man.
invite Kansas City Bob, whatever you do.
Yeah, no Kansas City Bob with his rivets on his jeans leaning against these gorgeous cars. But another man that knows enough about John Watson and the amazing brand, Tim LaComb, jazz pre, half, and post voice, as well as former BYU coach, as well as incredible musician. So, Coach, I was just down here talking with Corey and a couple of others that represented the Player of the Week ceremonies. And I spoke there 5 years ago. You spoke there at their last ceremony. And they said that you are 5 times the public speaker that I am. And I wasn't surprised, but I'm sure that makes you feel good.
Well, I don't know about that. I think maybe it's just that I'm, basketball guys are more nuanced than football guys. I don't think that makes you any better or worse. But, you just, if you're a guitar player, one speed, man. It's heavy and fast. And, like, the way you greet me every time, in your face. You pick me up and, twirl me around.
Yeah, you got to make it memorable, right? Like, I was talking to somebody about that the other day. They're like, why do you got to break my ribs every time you hug me? And I was like, so that you'll remember that I love you 2 weeks while those ribs are recovering. Like, I want you to remember how much I love you.
It's been months, and I'm still seeing a chiropractor, so thanks a lot.
Coach, how are you doing? Outside of the chiropractor, how are things going here in the offseason for you?
Awesome. Really, really good. It takes me, maybe 6 weeks to get out of the zombie mode that you get yourself into when you do 82 of those. But yeah, there's a world out here. We live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. So I'm exploring that. And as you said, outside of work, playing a lot of guitar and having some fun.
I love it, man. I always love the videos. It just seems like you're getting better and better, and eventually you're going to just leave us for some rock and roll band, and you're going to start traveling the world. Is that your dream? Like, do you just want the Party Hounds just to become the mainstay rotation party band?
Oh, probably not, because I've lived on the road before, and it's not the funnest. But I'll tell you what, to have a hobby where, like I got a call last week, and we're hoping it comes through, but some, guy wants to, for his 60th birthday, wants to blow it out and hire a band. And so I'm into a couple party planners and got a call last week. So we're hopefully going to do something up there. We're playing in Oklahoma, Texas this year, and we're playing a BYU game. I just haven't been able to dial in the date. So it's nice to be able to pick and choose, and it's not about the money as much as it's the experience. And those guys, I've known them for 40 years, so we've been together and known each other that long. So that kind of chemistry, whether it be sports or anything, it shines through.
If you want the party hounds, you can reach out to Coach LaComb, and he can make your dream come true. They'll take any party from a 1 or a 2 all the way up to a 10. It's like that last scene
we
of
like
Footloose.
10s. We like 10s.
Yeah. It's like that last scene of Footloose where Kevin Bacon comes running in after the fist fight and says, "Let's party!" And the disco ball turns on and the confetti starts dropping. That's the Party Hounds. Like, if I could describe the Party Hounds, it's the end scene of Footloose. It's all party, all excitement. So if you need to take a party up to a 10, you reach out to my guy. Hey, I wanted to get a couple of thoughts from you today. That's why we reached out to you. This Brian Windhorst comment has stirred up a lot of minds and made a lot of people think. For those of you that didn't see it, Brian Windhorst, who is a national writer and spokesperson for the NBA, said there's not anybody in the Western Conference who is really rebuilding right now. Everybody's kind of got the gas put down, including the Utah Jazz. They are intending to try to turn it up. When you heard those comments, Coach, have you had a couple of conversations behind the scenes? Is this news to you? And do you agree with Brian Windhorst that things are going to get turned up?
Well, no, I think so. A couple things. Number one, I think it's going to be a crazy summer. And, it all kind of got tipped over yesterday with the Desmond Bain news. But, if you back up and, go back to the Austin Ainge press conference and the time around that, Austin Ainge talked about, this team's not going to tank. All the vibes I got were when Austin came in, that it kind of signified perhaps a new chapter. And, there's going to be a lot of really good players. They're going to be up for, to be traded. And I think that the Jazz are, just like Austin said, they're going to be heavily involved in all that. Last summer, the term that was used was big game hunting, and everybody freaked out that, they didn't necessarily bag up anything big. But I think through this process, they've obviously learned how hard it is to hold guys accountable and yet make games, whether you win or lose, meaningless. So they've realized that's not necessarily the way. I think they had to play their cards that way. But with Austin Ainge in and the way that the climate is set in the NBA, I fully expected when Austin got here, especially after his press conference, and just what he said to anybody listening, the Jazz are going to be engaged in a lot of things. And I think everybody, at that point, that was the warning shot across the bow.
So, Coach, some of the names that are floating out there, Zion Williamson or Trae Young, Jaylen Brown or Ja Morant, a couple of these other guys, I don't expect Giannis to go anywhere. I think Milwaukee's going to lock him down. Are any of these names that you'd like to see the Jazz extend for, utilize their assets and really extend for? Or do you feel like there's something bigger and better in the cards for the Jazz in the future and they better hold pat?
Well, I think it all depends. The great thing about, guys that understand this process is that every deal stands on its own. And you can't look forward. You can't look backward. You simply have to look at where you are and what the opportunity is. And, I would just say names being floated around the league. I mean, there's a ton of interest when you talk about obviously the trouble that Ja Morant's had, but the talent. And I think everybody believes, hey, we can do it different here with him just because he's so talented. But you understand the risks there. I obviously heard Jaren Jackson Jr.'s name thrown out yesterday with the change with Desmond Bain. So does that shift the way that Memphis goes? But I think in every case, New Orleans is at a crossroads, and they've got guys like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy the third, who are guys back when they were drafted. You know, I was talking about those guys being kind of the new age wings in the NBA, those really long, really active, in Trey Murphy's case, really shoots it. Herb Jones is more of kind of a nuisance defensively and a great rebounder and an energy guy. But there are going to be a lot of interesting pieces. And if anything we've learned from perhaps watching Indiana and Oklahoma City, that it's those little moves. You know, it's the moves to get – it's not necessarily that Shea move. That was obviously massive, and you're hoping for one of those. But it's the moves like Caruso and Hartenstein. You know, in Indiana's case, it's trading Sabonis and getting Halliburton. Obviously understanding what Neesmith was in Boston and getting him over on your side. Understanding the piece that McConnell can be for a team. So all these moves are really important. All of the talent that's going to be out there is eye-opening. So, I think with the draft coming up and everything, we're going to find out pretty soon, but I think there's going to be a lot of movement league-wide.
Coach, there's something that I wish I could really put to bed, and that's this top 8 protected pick, because it's the thing that just hangs over my ability to open up the floodgates and say, all right, the Jazz are going to go all in. They're going to find a team. They're going to go out and win. And you've got this top 8 protected pick that hangs over your head that you just can't forget. Every time I start to think, oh, man, make a run at Giannis, or, oh, geez, and yeah, sure, he's a risk, he's a gamble, but maybe it ends up paying off and he loses weight and recommits himself and becomes the amazing athlete that we saw him be at Duke. And then I have to stop and pause and say, wait. You're in the final year of your conveyance of a top 8 protected draft pick. And when you go and look at this, Coach, and you study it, if you really want to avoid having to hand that pick over to OKC, you have to finish with the 4th worst record or worse. So either the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, or the 1st worst records. That keeps you completely out of the possibility of falling to the 9th pick in the NBA draft lottery. If you really want to avoid it, it's got to be top 4. If you end up with the 5th worst record, you've got 0.62% chance of handing that pick over to Oklahoma City. If you fall into the 7th, you've got 3.68%. If you get into 8th, 9th, you're at 32% and 50%. So it's not like, oh, well, you got to have the 8th worst record to be at number 8 to make sure that you don't. No. If you're at number 8, you've got a 32% chance of falling to 9th in the NFL draft or the NBA draft lottery. So, Coach, you got to be strategic with these things. And, I mean, we're risking a big future piece with the Utah Jazz if they decide, oh, we're going to go win some games. So how much does that hang over them?
Well, it's obviously something to consider. But at the same time, I think if anything, last year's journey proved it's hard to accomplish 7 goals at once. And the other thing I would say is that in some cases, what looks like it might, just be an absolute colossal bummer, at the end of the day, it really depends on if you were able to score some amazing dudes this year that can really help you and you win too many games. I mean, the Jazz have first-round picks till the cows come home. So I would just simply say, as long as it fits, and I think you've done a heck of a job nailing it down. You sounded like Locke right there. I mean, that's what differentiates you from most football guys. I'll just have to say it, is your intellect and your work ethic. But no, so again, you just don't, I guess an easy way to say it, you don't want to step over dollars to pick up dimes. And, if there are some moves that can really, really help you this year, like if Spurs came to you and said, hey, we want to do this and that, and 2's sitting there and, you were able to get a guy that could majorly help your team, and then make some moves alongside that with some complementary players, and you win too much next year. Obviously you lose the pick, but this year, they had the pick and everybody was frustrated that it's at 5. So, it doesn't seem like that pick necessarily people were dancing around. So I think everything is perspective, everything's paradigm. And as long as you don't try to do too many things at once and you accomplish a goal, I think you're moving that thing forward.
How well do you know Austin Ainge, and what's he like?
I know Austin very well. Got to know him, 100 years ago, it seems. But I was coaching at Utah when he was at BYU and was always just impressed with his the way he saw the game. There's certain guys that stand out to you. And I thought he was a guy who, wasn't necessarily his athletic ability or skill set. He really made his team better because of his brain and the things that he saw. And I think he's just taken that. He left playing and he went straight to Southern Utah, and he learned what it was like to go out on the road and recruit. I think he's always had a really good eye, even back as a player. I remember talking to him after games and stuff. He sees things. He recognized good players on our side at Utah. And then really our friendship began more than anything when he then went out to Maine and went with the Celtics. He was in Maine 2 years coaching the D-League affiliate. And then he moved over to Boston and obviously been there for 15 or 16 years and talked to him a ton, trying to get his feel on players. I can just tell you the players he sent me at a really young age, talking 8th grade, a lot of those dudes became NBA guys. And, that's where you're really going to start tracking these guys. And I think he's got such a great feel for the grassroots piece, the connections, the power brokers out there in the AAU world. And so he sees these guys young and he's able to study them for a long time. And then when they get to college and he digs into their tape, it's not necessarily trying to discern who they are because he understands that. It's now, getting into the fine details. And that's where an organization can get a real advantage, in my opinion.
Do you think he's the type of guy that is going to identify the talent? Like, let's just say he's sitting there. He's like, I got to have Ace Bailey. And sitting around with Ryan Smith and Danny Ainge and saying, I got to have Ace. Where are we going to get him? Should be Cooper, should be Dylan Harper. Let's say Ace is there. Can we get aggressive? Do you think he's the kind of guy that'll lock in and then find a way to get it done?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if there's a guy who really believes in it, I think the example of Peyton Pritchard's a great one. He was not projected to go in the first round. He was a guy that I started to watch when he was in the 9th grade. And he played with reckless abandon then. He plays with it now. But, what really made him different was his irrational confidence shooting the basketball. And so I think they understood that, his toughness, his understanding, obviously, who he is. So that, from a distance, they say, hey, that can be a piece on a championship team. So they dive into the first round. They didn't have a pick. They went in and got it, I think, somewhere in late first round, and got Peyton Pritchard. And just this last year, after several years of really making contributions, got that 6th Man of the Year award. And so, yes, I think that's what he's great at. And then you ask me what he's like as a person. Austin's very, very comfortable in his own skin. He can make hard decisions and live with it. He's not, opposed to criticism. And I'll just say in a me first world, and I've experienced this a ton, you make a lot of friends through the years. And those guys, when you make a friend with me, you're my friend for life, and, I look out for my friends. But, it's interesting to see as people get power and success that oftentimes they forget the people that, were there in their lives. And I will just say that I sent, Austin a text congratulating him, and within minutes, sent a text back saying, oh, man, it was before his press conference even. And then what really stood out is last week he sent a text and said, hey, I'm just coming up for air, and, what kind of advice do you have for me? And I thought that was so perceptive because he's the type of guy that will ask that to 100 people. And he's looking for little nuggets, and I think that's an awesome way to live, is see successful people or people you value, what's made them great, listen to them, really deeply listen. And hey, somebody may have a nugget for me. And so that's where I really am impressed, because he's headstrong and he makes great, he lives with his decisions. But I think he's also a man that values insight and isn't opposed to a different, view on things, which I think is really important too.
So, Coach, give me, let's put a percentage on it. The percentage chance that we see Jordan Clarkson back in a Utah Jazz jersey this upcoming season.
I think Jordan it's been such a fun piece here for a lot of years. I think when he was first acquired by the Jazz, it was a time where the bench was actually pretty shallow, and he came in and instantly provided a spark. And I think he's still got that ability. The situation here has not been ideal necessarily for his value per se, because he really has the same sort of irrational confidence. But when you're on a team that's not winning, sometimes that irrational confidence looks irresponsible. And so I would think there's somebody out there that understands his value. I know, his time's probably come and gone here in terms of a piece. But I think that, the cool thing about the Jazz is I think they're pretty transparent about things. So if he is in fact, on his way out, I think he's probably got a fairly good idea. And all those things are contingent upon finding the right deal. And so there's got to be interest on the other side. So I would say that's probably a move that will happen. But to put a number on it, not sure. I think the veteran guys have played their way into a position, John Collins being one of them, Colin Sexton being another, who those guys were amazing last year. And Collins been good for a couple of years. So I think, now just as the league starts to kind of move, just like I said, Trey Murphy's an interesting piece. Herb Jones is. There's other people, other league, teams in the league looking across saying, oh man, John Collins, we could get John for this, or we could get Colin Sexton for that. Two hard-playing guys that totally understand who they are and give you something every night.
Is there a benefit or a disadvantage to waiting until the trade deadline to making some of these moves? For instance, Lauri Markkanen, who I think we didn't see peak Lauri last year. Is there a benefit to putting Lauri out there and showing him with the development and really pushing him and waiting until the trade deadline to make the moves? Or do you feel like that you've got more leverage in the offseason to make a move with some of these pieces that you have, some of the current players that you have?
Again, I think every deal stands on its own, and it's really what are teams wanting and willing to do. I mean, the Jazz aren't in any hurry to unload Lauri. There's a ton of value there, and I disagree with those that say his stock took a hit. I think everybody understood what last year was. And, Lauri, if anybody, really relies on a pretty fluid offense with guys making good decisions. 2 years ago, he led the NBA in shots taken without a dribble. And so I think that just tells you he's a timing guy, down to the nuance and detail of an angle on a screen that, gives him a pocket to shoot the ball. And if you've got young guys out there and they're late to set it or they're a wrong angle, their dude slides through and it makes Lauri look not as good. So I think there's an understanding of who he is. And again, he's not a guy that the Jazz are trying to play hot potato with, but they do understand he could be a really important piece to a team that is trying to make a move. So you just take all that in. And if the deal doesn't present itself, You don't have to do anything. And so I think that's the advantage, Hans, is unless the deal shows itself and it makes a ton of sense and it helps move things, not in a hurry to move him, I don't think.
Man, Coach, I wish you were sitting down here at John Watson Chevy with me. I'm sitting in the middle of about 10, 15 different cars that are going to be a part of this car show. You got old Camaros. This is like if I could have a Mr. Miyagi moment. You remember where Miyagi points at Danielson and says, "Pick one." I wish I could have a Miyagi moment.
BYU, right?
Yeah, he did.
He was your defensive coordinator.
He did. We did the wax on and wax off and everything. And
made your hands really good on those. I don't even know what you call it. Just those early moves.
Pass rush drills. That's all. You just pass rush drills. And if he pointed it and he said, "Hey, any one of these?" Oh man, there's some beautiful cars in here. But hey, by the way, Corey Watson's sitting on the headset with me.
Hey,
Corey,
guys.
There's a familiar voice for you, Corey.
Yeah. If you're interested in waxing, I'll get you busy down here.
You need some help in the detail bay, do you?
Oh, yeah. Showroom floor. You could be the star of the showroom.
Well, Corey already told Coach LaComb. Oh, go ahead, Coach.
Oh, I was just going to say, I would think you probably have to pay Hans with the double because he'd get twice the work done because he can just – that one buff is enough.
That's probably true.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on with us. Appreciate the insight. Can't wait to see what the Utah Jazz do. And I just thought this Brian Windhorst comment lit the world on fire a little bit, kind of went against what a lot of people were saying. And thanks for clarifying some things.
Absolutely. Have fun over there. Those are great dudes with a ton of time in business. The Watson boys take care of you. Yeah, they do. Thanks, Coach. All right, man. All right, we'll come back. We're going to be talking with Bob Casper. He's going to be replaying the U.S. Open, how that thing went down, the amazing putt to win it. That's all coming up next with Bob Casper.
Number one. Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, live at John Watson Chevy in Ogden. Love to have you come down, check out the vehicles, say hi to the Watson brothers. I think Corey's headed out, but we got Cam. Cam's going to be hanging out with us the rest of the day. And big thanks to John Watson and the family for having us down, representing obviously an amazing vehicle. And it's still pretty incredible sitting in the middle of about $1 million worth of vehicles. This is pretty intimidating. And a guy that would know a little bit about that, our next guest, he was there. He saw it all, the magic, the incredible shot. Bob, the great Casper. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Hans. How are you?
Well, I'm just sitting in the middle of this showroom, and we've got all these vintage Camaros. We go back to 67. We've got a 67, a 68, and a 69 right behind me. We've got about 6 or 7 other incredible Chevys looking like anything between mid-60s all the way to mid-90s, but this showroom's incredible. You know the John Watson name, Bob. These guys are incredible.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Great people. Incredible showroom. So I want you to talk a little bit about the 64-foot putt that won this Open. How much movement was there on this putt? How intense was it? How much did the rain affect the green at the time? Just kind of take us through that putt.
Well, the one thing he had going for him was that Victor Hovland was just outside him by about 2 feet and on basically the same line as he had. So we saw how Victor Hovland's putt rolled. He saw how much break there was in the putt. And I would say probably for that 64-foot putt, probably had 3 or 4 feet of break. So he was going from a level on the left side of the green towards the right side of the green, slightly uphill, kind of going overall slightly uphill, but going down into a little dip and then back up the other side. And then the ball started breaking and found the bottom of the hole. But it was a phenomenal putt. He made some great putts on the back nine. 12th hole, he made one down a slope that was really, really fast going downhill. He made that putt. I think he made another one a few holes later. That was a downhill putt. He just made a bunch of putts on the back nine. And the interesting thing is, Hans, they had that weather delay. He shot 5 over par on the front nine, okay? He was kind of out of it. They had the weather delay, and the weather delay. If you're a guy that's playing well and you have a weather delay, that's not what you want because that kind of slows your momentum. But if you're a guy that's not playing well and you can get a weather delay, if you can get your head right, it's like an automatic reset. And he shot 5 over on the front, and he shot 3 under on the back. So it was 40 on the front nine, 32 on the back nine, and he won the golf tournament. He won by 2 shots. Everybody else came backwards. Everybody else was struggling, and he made a whole bunch of putts, which was really cool.
JJ Spawn gets the win. You're cutting out on us just a little bit, Bob. Hopefully your phone will stabilize for us. JJ Spawn gets the victory, and as Bob mentioned, it was just night and day, front nine to back nine. That 64-foot birdie putt for the win. It was incredible. Now, he needed a par for the win, but he sunk the birdie for the win. And we watched a lot of guys that were in contention, and they just continued to tumble down the leaderboard. Talk about some of the other guys that were trailing J.J. Spawn that just couldn't get it together and how tough that course was in general, especially on that final day.
Well, you know, the top 6 guys, the top 6 finishers in the tournament had not won a major championship. All the guys that had won majors, Adam Scott, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, those guys really didn't make a push. In fact, Adam Scott shot 79, and Sam Burns, who was leading the golf tournament at 4 under par starting the day, he shot 78. So, it was the golf course. First of all, it was really difficult and really hard to begin with. But then you throw the weather in with it, and a lot of times that softens up the golf course and makes it more receptive. But it didn't this because everybody was hitting the ball outside the fairway or wasn't hitting greens. And then when you get in that thick, wet rough that's, 5.5, 6.5 inches long, then it becomes really, really difficult to be able to get the ball out of the rough, whether it's a shot down the fairway, laying up, or on a par 5 as a second shot, or around the green when you're trying to conserve pars. The other thing it does is, you try to hit it hard enough to get it out, but hopefully it doesn't come out too hard. And then if it hits those greens, it takes off and rolls a long ways away. If you try to hit it too soft, then you see what guys like Adam Scott and Sam Burns did, where they only hit it about 3 or 4 feet and it stayed in the rough right in front of them. So it was just a really extremely difficult golf course with all the rough that was on the golf course and the greens being so fast. And that's why we only saw 1 under par win it. We were thinking maybe earlier in the week it was going to be even or somewhere between even and 5 over par. But if they got moisture, it could get up to 5 under par. But right around even was right where it was at.
All right, Bob, just to get a better idea of how incredible that 64-foot make was, if I kept J.J. Spawn in the exact spot and I dropped 99 more balls for him to hit that exact same putt, how many of those 99, or let's just go, how many out of that 100 does he sink?
The one he made.
Only 1 out of the 100.
I think there was no chance he would make that more than once. 1 in 100.
That's
no chance.
Incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'd actually held on to that question. I'm like, I got to ask Bob this because when I was watching it live, when it hit, the first thing I thought is, oh, man, I got to ask Bob how many out of 100 this would sink. So 1 out of 100, like maybe 1 out of a couple hundred. The way the green was, the moisture that hit, the intensity of the moment, it's just it's magical when those things hit, and it's got to be incredible to have a walk-off birdie sink like that because what I understand, he just makes par and he still wins it, right? He just needed the lag, but even the lag was questionable where he was sitting. I mean, there was still kind of this breathless anticipation of can he two-putt and find a par to get the win.
Well, and he made a 3.5-foot putt on the 17th hole for his second putt on that green because he hit a beautiful drive onto the green, putting for eagle, knocked it by about 3.5 feet, and then made that coming back. But that putt from 64 feet, if that ball gets to the hole, which it did, but if it misses the hole and it gets to the hole, it's going to go 3 or 4 feet past. Then he's got that one to be able to conserve the victory. But with that ball going in the hole, of course, he won by 2 shots. But, yeah, it's with everything concerned and the atmosphere and what was at stake, not only winning the U.S. Open, but $4.3 million, the trophy, the gold medal, and his first major of his career. Now, this guy had to play in Canada to get back on the Korn Ferry Tour or the Web.com Tour at the time. He got on the PGA Tour, lost his card, went back. I mean, there was a lot of adversity this guy's gone through in his career. He won in San Antonio like 3 years ago, lost his card, almost gave up his dreams of playing on the PGA Tour, and then recommitted himself and played some phenomenal golf this year. Lost in the playoff at the Players' Championship against Rory McIlroy. Has been sticking his nose in there. Didn't feel like he was hitting the ball well a couple weeks ago, so he took a week off and worked with his coach on some things. And when he came back, he was actually hitting the ball really, really well. Hit a lot of fairways, hit a lot of greens, and shot that 66 in the first round. And kudos to him, man. He played awesome, and that final round, he was able, even though he shot 2 over par, he bested the field, and he won the U.S. Open.
Okay, so Bob, I got to throw the question at you. Now that you've seen the course, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it through the exact same 4 days that these guys just played through. You saw the weather, you got the rain delay, you're going to hit all these things, okay? I'm going to ask you the question. You get $1 million if you shoot a 92 or better.
I thought it was a 94.
It was a 94, but I'm dropping it to a 92 because you're the great Bob Casper. I went 90.
So the course is even harder.
Yes.
And you're dropping the score to 92. Now, see, we need to negotiate this.
No, Bob. We played a scramble format against you, and you wiped the floor with us. I've got a lot of confidence in your ability to play golf, and I think a 92 is not without question. So, $1 million.
Okay.
If you hit a 92 or better.
Okay.
Or you have both your pinkies removed. If you hit a 93 or worse. And by the way, the pinkies are removed with a rusty machete against a brick.
Machete.
Yes. The pinkies are laid on a brick, and Scotty hits your pinkies with a rusty machete.
So you want to make this painful besides.
Yeah. Because it's either $1 million and some great times and buying some properties. And
Bob, it's not a machete. It's a machete.
Yeah, it's a machete.
Yeah.
92, Bob.
I'm taking the $1 million. I'll go for the 92.
Wow, you'll put the pinkies on the line. Bob's taking the $1 million and putting his pinkies on the line.
Listen, Hans. Brian and I were talking about this, okay?
Okay.
You know that 92's on the line. Now you start to play the golf course in a totally different manner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You're not trying to shoot the lowest score in the world, okay?
Yeah.
Now I can make bogey every hole.
Yeah, you're just gaming the course. Yeah.
And I still beat you.
And you think you could do it?
Par 70, that means I could shoot 88. And I've got 6 shots to play with. Or 4 shots to play with.
I want to build this into a Netflix special so bad. I guarantee Netflix would put $1 million up, and Scotty is always willing to chop your pinkies off if it helps him win a barbecue competition.
We call this Bob versus the machete.
The Netflix special, Bob versus the machete. Bob versus the 92.
No, Bob versus the machete is better.
So you think you could do it at Oakmont? You think you could put the 92 out there at Oakmont in the middle of horrible rain? That's why I love you, Bob. I'm so glad you said yes. That's the confidence I've come to expect.
Every green in regulation becomes now 3 on par 4s.
That's right.
On the par 3s, I can make up shots. You know, the 300-yard par 3, I'm laying up short of the bunkers and chipping up the green. Because then I can make 4, and on the par 5s, you know, I can take a 6. So yeah, I think I can do that.
That's why he is the great. That's why we rely on him for all things golf. That's why he is my dear friend, because he's the most competitive human being I know outside of myself. Bob, thank you so much for coming on, man. We sure appreciate your insight and coverage.
You got it. We'll talk soon.
There you go, the great Bob Casper. He says he'll take the $1 million, he'll hit the 92, and he'll go home rich, and he's not worried about losing the pinkies. I love it. I think it's a fascinating question because let's just tell you that Oakmont was not easy on a lot of these professional golfers. All right, come back to what you may have missed coming up next.
Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah, we've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
We're live at John Watson Chevrolet, hanging out, great friends. It's fun catching up with Cam and Corey. These are the types of people that you want to be in business with. And if you're here in Ogden, 3535 Walt Avenue, it's easy to find us. Come down and say hi. You can check out some of these beautiful cars. I think what do you say, a 62 Bel Air that's sitting here in front of me. 65 Chevelle. I've got 3 Camaros that are right next to me. It's just a beautiful showroom. So come down and say hi. And if you're in the market, you're looking for a Camaro, maybe you're having a midlife crisis, this is the way to do it, man. Midlife crisis, don't just sit there in the crisis. Come down and get rid of it with a Camaro. Like, honestly, get yourself a convertible. Let the hair fly around a little bit and have some fun. But I love it down here at John Watson. All right, so a couple of opportunities to hear from Kalani Sitake. He was on this morning with DJ and PK, and I actually pulled one piece of that interview because I wanted to revisit it with you and give you some of my thoughts on it because, first of all, I found it informative. Second of all, he said something in there that just leaves a shroud of mystery. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But this is Kalani Sitake sitting down with DJ and PK this morning. He was asked about NIL. He was asked about the House versus the NCAA settlement and how it's going to affect things. And here's Kalani's answer.
The House settlement has come. I've talked about now there's going to be an NIL clearinghouse, and we have all wondered, how is this possibly going to work? Is this going to be challenged by lawyers right away? How are coaches recruiting when the way NIL has worked the last couple of years is now out the window? How are you adjusting all this on the fly? How are the kids and parents adjusting to all this on the fly? How's the industry handling this?
It'll be fine. Yeah, I think the game itself is an amazing game. So I have great, following altogether in college football. There's a lot of people that are interested in it. The playoffs are improving every time that they take a look at it and they adjust. And so I think this adjustment, that's what the game is. I mean, whether it's the rules or the way we hit or when we can recruit, when we can sign, can we pay the players, or how does that payment come through? Is it a rev share or a NIL? I mean, as we go through it, I think everyone's trying to figure it out. I just know that you have to be ready to adapt in this game, and so I'm it was interesting because looking at the roster spots and everything, we were under the impression that we had to cut our roster to 105, and now you're realizing that that's probably not the deal, but it seems like some schools cut the rosters down and others didn't. So some were in the know and some weren't. So we obviously have to adjust to all that. It's just, that's the game. The game is coaches are required to learn the rules, and every year they change, and they're trying to improve the game. And as long as there's excitement, there's a great following, I think we'll be fine. We'll just find ways to make it better, and I think the game is getting better, but it's never going to be perfect right away, but we'll get there.
I think the bigger point, Coach, is that Brian Santiago taking over as athletic director, succeeding Tom Holmoe, and now he's speaking more from an authoritative standpoint since he's got the title, is that the message that he's sending, whatever the rules are and however they're implemented and whatever changes are there, BYU is ready to adapt and ready to try to win at the highest level. That's what I take in just a short time as his administration has gotten going. Respond to that.
Yeah, I think Brian, I'm excited about Brian being the athletic director, and I'm excited to follow his leadership. I think it was amazing seeing Tom usher us into the Big 12 and the changes that's happened. I mean, when I got here, we were an independent team, and which I've never been a part of that before. So when I got here, Tom and I discussed it, and he said, hey, we have to operate as if we're going to be a P5 team at the time. And so I said, well, the best way to do it is we just got to get some competition and see where we stand and match up with these guys. And luckily I have some experience when I was at Utah with A-Rod and Jay and those guys, and with Kyle. And so I was like, okay, if we want to be able to match up, we got to see how our team is and the depth of talent. And so we did that, and had some difficult schedules. And we had to be creative with it because most of our schedules were front-loaded. And but I think it allowed us to see where we need to improve on, and there's a lot of different areas. And so with the hopes that we would get into Big 12 or a power conference, and then we end up doing it, and then I think it's kind of like Tom's ready to pass the baton to someone else. He's ready to hang out and put his toes in the sand and relax and play some golf, and I think Brian's ready, and he seems excited at the opportunity, and I think he's been chomping at the bit for a while now, and this is going to be exciting to see him roll. But I think he understands the game and how different it is, even from basketball to football to volleyball, soccer, things like that. It's a different time. So he has the skills and the ability to lead us, and I'm excited about what we can do as a football program.
Couple things there from Kalani Sitake, and great take there on both the House versus NCAA settlement as well as Brian Santiago. I'll start really quickly with Brian Santiago, and I think right out of the gates, the new athletic director of BYU is saying the right things. He is definitely putting the right message out there, and that message is that this is a football university. Football is the most important. When asked about, the $20.5 million in revenue share distribution that's available, it's a high percentage of that's going to go to football. We're going to make sure that football is our top program, and he's really heavy on putting resources into the football program. So I'm happy to hear that, because I know that Brian Santiago is a basketball athletic director, a basketball person, a basketball player. I know that he's helped build BYU basketball into what it is, and I know it's his baby and his vision. So one of my concerns was, he becomes the athletic director. Is BYU basketball now the front porch of Brigham Young University? And he's done a really good job of stomping out any of those thoughts and saying, no, football is still first and foremost. So I'd love to hear that from Brian, and Kalani kind of endorsing that right now. With DJ and PK. Also, I heard a Baylor representative on air with Ben earlier today, and I thought it was really interesting. I might pull some of those thoughts because Lloyd, I don't know if you heard it, but this beat writer for Baylor, he actually had a percentage breakdown of the $20 million that could be allocated and the percentage that would be paid out to each individual program or sport. And I'd love to get that number from BYU if it was ever available, just to see, is it 80% that's divvied out to football? 18% then out to basketball? Is it 60% to football? 20% out to basketball? The rest distributed amongst the other Olympic sports? Like, I'd love to know the percentage and distribution, but I do know it's going to be heavy football. According to Brian Santiago, very heavy football. And then the other thing I thought was interesting in those comments is Kalani said, we thought we'd have to get to 105, and now we're having to adjust. The crazy thing about this is a lot of coaches have already got to 105 or close to 105. A lot of coaches have already stomped out their walk-on programs. A lot of coaches have already started to make those adjustments and slim down their rosters even before fall camp starts. Now, that doesn't mean they can't go out and get a couple of guys to fill up a roster if that's what is made available to them. But just listening to Kalani Sitake say, well, we thought it was going to be a 105, but now it looks like that might not be the case. And I don't even think he could really nail down what the case is because I don't think it's set in stone. I think that you've got 105 scholarships that you can give out. I think some universities will stick with 85 and say, no, we're not doing the full 105. We'll stick with 85, and then we'll have 10 or 15 walk-ons, and we're going to run this program lean, and we'll put more money into the 85 that we've got. I think everybody's going to have to adjust, and out of the gates, it's going to come down to who's got the better business plan. But that's why it's so important to have the right athletic director, the right head coach. And now you hear all of these different CEO labels that are being put on people. You've got all of these guys that have major responsibilities on the business end of the football side of a university, which you've never had before. And so that's why you're seeing these programs hire these business minds, because they're sitting at a table now with a business plan of, okay, well, actually, if we slim the roster, if we ran it like an NFL team and we had a 54-man roster, and then we had an 11-man rotation roster, and then we really leaned it out, and then we were able to distribute more money to the 54, and or we want to make sure we grab every recruit and every talent we can. We'll keep it saturated. We'll really distribute the money evenly, but we want as much talent on the field as we can because injury issues and talent discovery and talent development, and because, you've got high school kids that just develop at different rates. You've got some kids that are growing mustaches in 7th grade, and then you got some kids like my son, who's an 18-year-old, that's just starting to figure out his 200 or 320-pound body. You've got early development, you've got late development, and you could see college programs saying, we can't make a judgment based on 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade film. So we got to really throw a wide, broad net. And so Kalani Sitake's thoughts on that were pretty interesting. I had an opportunity to sit down with Kalani just the day before DJ and PK and was able to catch up with him about some of the off-season stuff that he's dealing with. Here's my sit-down with Kalani. All right, I'm here with Kalani Sitake, head coach at BYU. Coach, how's the off-season treating you?
Going well. I mean, the guys, obviously, it's when you go through the off season, just means that football season is right around the corner. So we're getting to the off season conditioning and training, and coaches are getting used to doing all this stuff in the off season camps and everything like that, and recruiting.
It's not like it used to be, huh?
No, it's a lot different, a lot more busy. But it's like you used to have a lot more time to get things ready, but now with recruiting being fast forwarded and it's kind of been. You have to do recruiting this late. Normally, we would have recruiting visits would stay during the season and in the winter, and now we're having them in the summer, before the kids even start their senior year. That's just kind of what the game is and what's happened with college football nowadays. But so we're working through all that, and it's extremely busy, but really excited about what we're seeing from the team and our possibilities and the potential that we have for this year.
You still buzzing from that Colorado win? That was a big win.
That seems like so long ago now.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
It already seems like it's a long time ago?
Well, I mean, it's like right now the weather's hot, and like I can't believe like that it was ever cold at one time. So maybe I'm just like my short-term memory like doesn't let me look back too far, but it just seems so long ago that it's like, we kind of have to move on and learn from it. But I like the momentum it just created. But I want to just be able to keep building on everything. And our goal is always stay humble and hungry. So in order to stay humble and hungry, we got to look past things and even some things that we did well and try to find ways to get better. So that's the goal now. Is like that was in the past. We appreciate it. We loved it. But what can we learn from that? And how can we influence that to make us be better now?
A lot of busy work going on throughout the offseason with this house and NCAA and NIL stuff. You navigating all this really well, Coach?
Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone's doing it really well because there's so many new parts to it. But, I mean, I think we will – one thing that I'm committed to is adapting to whatever's out there. You know, it's if the rules of football change or whatever, like, you know, obviously there's no targeting those hits. You have to change things a little bit to whatever's out there. So whatever changes happen, we'll make it work. Whatever happens in the calendar, we'll make it work for us. And hopefully I can do a great job as a head coach and make it an advantage. But that's the hard part is that there's nothing consistent right now. This year is way different than last year, and next year will be different than this year. So it's an ever-changing system. We just have to get used to it.
Well, I see you at every charity event that you got out there. I mean, you've probably done 500 of them since the last time you and I talked. But you've got a big one coming up, I think June 16th.
Yeah.
We had the Hope in Motion family in the studio, and you got this Hope in Motion Invitational that's coming up, 8 a.m. tea time. You can go to KOTM.org, kidsonthemove.org. But just a lot of cool things like this and others that you help bring awareness and raise money for.
Well, I just love being connected to the community. Obviously, being here at BYU and seeing everybody, that makes it easy. But for some reason, everybody wants to play golf, and my golf game sucks. But
does it still?
It's still.
Because you've been doing it now for 10, 15 years.
Apparently,
you should be getting better.
Apparently, you have to practice it if you want to get better at it, and I refuse to practice. But I got other things to go on. We just talked about all the changing landscape of college football. Don't really have a lot of time in my golf game, but I do have time to hang out with people and play golf. And maybe it's because they have someone to beat, and that's me. But I do know one thing: I'll do it whatever I can to do my best to help anyone in any charity and anyone that's trying to do good for others. That's what this is about. Hope in Motion Golf Invitational is to help so many young people, especially, and families in the community to just make their lives easier and to give them all the resources necessary to just kind of give them a better life. And so we can all agree that that's the right thing to do, even if we're not good at golf. Come out and play and just be involved and see any way you can be involved. Some people can't play golf or don't want to spend money to do it. Find ways to be connected because we need all the help we can get, and this is a great cause, and I'm looking forward to playing golf and being around with all these people. It's amazing.
Well, I get to see how bad your game is here in a couple of weeks. BYU Media Day, golf tournament, and you're going to be out there. All the coaches coming there. Are you coming out to that?
Oh, I'm going to be there. The thing is, like, I'm not good at golf, but I like it for some reason.
What is it?
It's an addicting thing. When you're about to give up on it, you hit a good shot and you're like, okay, I'll give it another chance.
It's a 120-foot putt. Yeah. You're like, oh, gee.
It's just it's this thing that you just can't quit because it's. I understand why people love it so much. I just wish I was better at it. But us big guys with back issues, it's not meant for us. And the more hands you use, the worse it is. So.
And I'm all about the grip.
Yeah.
I like to wring out my handle every time.
Yes, and then like guys like Tony Finau and John Rahm have made it cool to not do a full backswing. But a little quarter swing. Yeah, so I'm just trying to find everything out there to help me in my game, but practice.
You're close with Tony. How come Tony's not straightening you out?
I think I'm beyond help in the golf game, but. Even though my golf game isn't good,
it's bad back.
Yeah, he is. He's got a great back, and he's strong, and he's still young. Us old guys, it's hard, but One thing I do know is that we can be around and hang out and come watch me golf because I'm not good at it, and at least give you some laughing and some laughter and some good times, and we get to hang out with everybody. It's going to be a lot of fun, though.
That's what that's all about. Hope in Motion Invitational. Good luck, Coach. Have a great off season, and we're going to be kicking off fall camp pretty quick.
Let's go. Love you guys. Go Cougs.
Thanks, Coach. There you go, Kalani Sitake with me just a little bit earlier last week, and fun back and forth. He's energized. He's excited. He is not trying to shy away from the situation that he's dealing with Jake Retzlaff. And as you heard with DJ and PK this morning, as Kalani sat down, he's got attorneys and he's got administration that is making sure that he doesn't say a peep. And right now, that's not his responsibility. There's too many legal obligations that they've got to go through before anybody can comment on anything. And I totally understand that. And even in a private setting, Kalani refused to even talk about it. And I respect that. I understand that these coaches have protocol that they got to follow because, as I've witnessed, if you get out of protocol, that's your job. And not only is it your job, that's your reputation. And Kalani's not about to mess with his reputation. He's going to make sure that he's doing things the right way. So I expect BYU to handle it the right way, and so far they have. And, I've seen all the speculation out there, and everybody's got their own story. Oh, well, my aunt's cousin's sister told me that this happened, and this – just let it all fall back into the very – able and capable hands of the attorneys and judges and probably the jury that this is going to be handled in front of with this civil case. So a lot of things upcoming in regards to Jake Retzlaff. But Kalani Sitake's in great spirits, as always, and I wouldn't expect anything different from him. The guy, ever since I met him in 1997 when he came back from his mission, the guy has been nothing but a positive influence in my life, and obviously he's done some incredible things there at BYU. And if he does end up losing Jake Retzlaff, I expect him to figure it out. That's why he's got Aaron Roderick. That's why Aaron Roderick's expected to have a deep quarterback room. That's why he brought in the quarterbacks that he's brought in and made sure that he had a room even before they found out about this civil situation. So it's going to fall back on Aaron Roderick to make sure that he's ready, if that is the situation, because you can't have JoJo Phillips and Chase Roberts. You can't have this returning Parker Kingston and LJ Martin, and you can't have Sione Moa and this returning offense with this offensive line and just say, well, we lost our quarterback. Well, that's our excuse. That's not an excuse. You better have a deep quarterback room, and you better be ready to adjust, especially now because you're going to have all camp to make those adjustments and figure out the direction you're going to go. There you go. Big thanks to Kalani Sitake. Great stuff from DJ and PK this morning. You can hear their conversation at KSLSports.com. Kalani has a lot of fun with those guys, and that's why I always love DJ and PK. They've got good relationships with these coaches, just like I do, and it makes for a fun conversation. You always get good insight and great stuff. We've got Good, Bad, and Ugly coming up. And then remember, from 2 to 3, Jay Stevens will be sitting down with us here at John Watson Chevrolet. And we're going to be talking all things NHL Finals from 2 to 3. Good, Bad, and Ugly next.
This is your top 60 and 60 watch list as Hans and Scotty gets you ready for the start of the 2025 college football season by highlighting the most influential players on their team for the upcoming season. And now, get the call, baby! Come on, let's go! Here's today's newest addition to the watch list.
Hanging out live at John Watson Chevy, talking with Cam and Corey and the Watson family. It's great sitting down with them. Absolutely love this family. Love this brand, too. Just sitting amongst these Chevys makes me feel really good about the country that I'm living in. I'm telling you, pretty dang American here in the showroom. Our 60 and 60 is an incredible opportunity for you to hear from the head coaches of these amazing athletes and to get a better look at the athletes that you're going to be watching in the upcoming football season. And we're excited about our next selection. This guy has been around for a lot of years, and he has made a lot of big-time plays. He has sealed victories for BYU, and he comes in as one of the leading veterans of a great BYU defense. Here he is, Tanner Wall.
Tanner Wall, one of the best leaders on our team, and has worked through so many things, seeing his rise and belief in himself from a walk-on receiver to now a captain and a leader of our team and our defense, and has been doing a great job for us as starting free safety. His instincts of his ability to find the ball and to make tackles as a true eraser in our defense is something special, but it's also his leadership and his ability to connect with his teammates at so many different levels. He's a very tactical guy, so he's always thinking of strategy and schemes and ways to improve his technique. But he combined that with his ability to be physical and hit. And big plays happen when he's around and when he's on the field. And so grateful that he's also a great leader for us. And that he's going to be president of the United States someday.
I'm sorry. He said what? Did he say he's going to be?
You heard that right.
President of the United States.
Yes.
Kalani was as animated and as excited to talk about his players as I've ever seen him. Lloyd, what is that, about a minute and a half, minute 20?
Yep. And if you later on here soon, when you go to famousmormons.com, he will be on there as president.
President of the United States, Tanner Wall. I love it. Kalani wrapping things up on Tanner, saying he will someday be the president of the United States. Tanner is a great representative and an exciting player and such a great piece of what Jay Hill is trying to do defensively. And you're going to have a pretty darn good backfield. Raider DeMooney has really come along, and I'm excited to see what Raider can do. You had 3 or 4 other great defensive backs that stepped up, got time to play last year, and to kind of build their resume. But I think that Tanner Wall is kind of the mainstay. He's the staple back there. I think he's the most trusted to be where he's supposed to be and when he's supposed to be there. So excited to see Tanner and another year of growth and how he fits into this defense. And big thanks to Kalani for sitting down for nearly 2 hours and going through these athletes. Again, the 60 and 60 now is an opportunity to just take a look at the players that you'll be watching in the upcoming season. We did not rank them this year. This isn't the typical 60 and 60. The transfer portal has completely ruined that. It's just jacked it up. So
yeah, thanks, transfer portal.
Yeah, so we had to make a move on the run. We had to make a move, and this is what we went to. We went to the 60 and 60 watch list. Tanner Wall checking in. All right, well, I'm going to take a lot of these stories from the good, bad, and ugly. I'll put them in sports roulette when we spin the wheel. Maybe we'll by chance hit a couple of these. But
can I go ahead and tease the next? Can I tease our whole world news?
Yeah, please.
Let's just say it is a whole world news that'll make your back hurt.
It'll make your back hurt, and it's a whole world news. I'm just not sure how much we should be celebrating this accomplishment. That's coming up next. Live at John Watson Chevrolet in Ogden, 3535 Wall Avenue. Come down, say hi, check out these beautiful cars. That's John Watson Chevy in Ogden. Jay Stevens at 2 o'clock, and we've got a little bit of whole world news coming up next.
Span the globe for the hard-hitting news you care about. Well, not really. But hey, at least we found it interesting. This is Whole World News on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We got the whole world in our hands.
You got the whole world in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. You got you and me, brother, in our hands. You got you and me, sister, in our hands. You got you and me, brother, in our hands. We got the whole world.
All right. I don't know how big of an accomplishment this is. I don't know how this man's wife feels about this, but this gentleman at the tender age of 24 just set a new world record for consecutive hours golfed. Let's go live to New York.
We have an update on a marathon golfer on Long Island that we told you about yesterday at 5. Kelechi Azihi has now broken the world record for the longest game of golf at 36 hours. The 27-year-old celebrated at the Huntington Crescent Club, where he had been golfing since 6 p.m. Sunday. Azihi was initially aiming for 24 hours, but then, get this, in the middle of the game, he found out a British golfer set a new record of 32 hours. So he had to pivot, and he thanked his supporters today.
You guys kept me pushing, you guys kept me going, and just for that, I'm a champion, I guess. I'm a world champion.
You're a world champion.
Yeah!
There he is. The Inwood resident did this to raise money and awareness for his mission to diversify golf. Guinness World Records still needs to review the record.
We were telling this story last night. He could only take a 5-minute break every hour. And that's a long time to play golf. The course was completely dark last night. It was, kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure his hips are feeling better today.
He needs a massage.
36 hours of golf. Jay Stevens from Puck Report. He's sitting in with us for the next hour. Could you do 36 hours of hockey?
That I might be able to do. I've done some of those overnight tournaments, but I'll tell you, I just did 18 holes of golf after having a whole year off of golf, and I had to call in sick the next day.
Are you serious?
I couldn't move.
Are you kidding?
Well, I also went and worked out, and then I went and cleaned my shed. But I woke up the next morning to go to work, and I'm like, my back's not there.
Your body was jacked?
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No. I was swinging for the fences every time too, though. So
I mean, you come out of a net, you're bent over. You're still playing men's leagues.
Yeah, I just got off the ice to come here.
Yeah. Oh, did you? You were on the ice this morning?
Yep.
How'd it go?
I was there.
How's the game?
It's decent.
You still stopping the pucks?
They
you steal the wall?
They still hit me. I'm definitely showing my age on my speed though, but having fun with it,
Have you ever thought about just widening your leg pads by like 6 inches on each side?
Oh, yeah.
Seeing if anybody notices?
Man, in the early 90s, they were getting out of control. And then the NHL came through and made some rules, and then for some reason, Men's League followed those rules. And then because I'm still an E-Bug, my pads have to be signed off by the NHL.
Oh, okay.
So mine are...
So if you ever get called up, like they're going to check your pads?
Yeah, I don't know if they actually would. I probably don't have to follow those rules, but the Grizzlies always make me do it just in case.
So 36 hours of golf. So you did 18, and you're done. 36 hours.
I think if I warmed up into it, though, like I'd probably be all right.
You'd get through it.
Okay, what's the most you've ever played, Hands? The most. I'm not talking hours. I'm just talking.
I did 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
At Wolf Mountain.
That's got to be 50-something holes, maybe in the 60s, somewhere around there. Maybe?
Yeah, it was 3 full rounds of 18.
Okay.
Wow.
And
I've done the same, and that's my max.
And it was a blast. And at the end of it, I wasn't like, I'm done. I could have kept going. I'd look at 36 hours. I'm like, if my wife okayed on it, I would probably just try it for the weekend.
Your wife would be fine if you were doing it for charity, like that guy.
Well,
that's the excuse, right?
So this is what the guy said. He said, people assume that golf is for the wealthy, and I'm trying to change that. Stop it. Stop right there, Kelechi. Because I just paid for 2 rounds of 18 at a golf course in a different valley than this one, and it was $144.
Yeah.
So it's still for the wealthy.
Yes.
But you still have, like, great community courses, like Meadowbrooks, which is an incredible course. You can get a nice, affordable round of 18.
Yeah, the county round courses are somewhat decent.
$46,
yeah,
maybe $53.
Yeah.
But, you're getting into some of these better courses, and you're an easy $70 a round. And then if you want to play something real classy, it's $120 a round.
Oh, yeah.
Like they've got Bears Best in Vegas, which is one of the funnest courses that I've played on. Basically, this guy took Jack Nicklaus's top 18 holes throughout the world and recreated them in Vegas. And it's pretty incredible. Like, you got a whole lot of Torrey Pines, you got a whole lot of Augusta, and he's got 18 of his favorite holes.
Well, we've got something similar. Tiger Woods designed a golf course that's going in up above Park City right now, right?
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's supposed to be unreal, and it's in that. I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this though, but it's part of that Black Rock stuff that's up there where they have the new ice rink.
Oh,
they put in an ice rink. They're gonna have a team there.
They're gonna have all new 18 up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods designed it. Yep. That's what I was told. Like, I've got the email that because they were pitching us on supporting their hockey program. So, yeah, they've got a whole big deal over there.
Jay Stevens hanging out with us for the next hour. We're going to be jumping into all things NHL Stanley Cup Finals coming up to kick off the 2 o'clock hour. All right, let's do this. Coming up next, NHL Finals with the man, the myth, the legend, the voice of the puck report, my good friend, and the best hockey player that I've been on the ice with.
You were on the ice with actual Grizzlies. You were actually taking shots from Ryan Kanasowicz.
Which was crazy.
All-time leading scorer.
Jay Stevens with us for the next hour here on The Zone.
Number one. Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The final seconds tick away, and the Panthers are 5-2 winners here in Game 5 in Edmonton. The Panthers take a 3-2 lead in the Stanley Cup Final, and the Panthers will head home for Tuesday night's Game 6, needing just one win to make it back-to-back Stanley Cups.
Well, Jay, I gave you your due over the weekend. I called you the great Jay Stradamus because you pretty much predicted the exact form and outcome of Game 4. And then right before Game 5, I texted you, or maybe there was a score on the board. I said, will Edmonton get back in this one? He said, no, I don't think they'll get back in this one.
Yeah.
And Florida quickly scored right after I texted you. So you pretty much called the whole weekend.
Nobody was more surprised than I was when that panned out the way I said it was going to pan out. But
yeah, because you called Edmonton an OT in Game 4.
Yeah.
And Florida had to score with 14 seconds left just to force OT. So when you got to that point, I'm like, Jay was close.
I was happy with being close.
And then 14 seconds hits, Florida scores. It goes 4-4, goes into OT, and I'm like, oh, dude, if Edmonton pulls this off, that's when I started texting you. If Edmonton pulls this in OT, we got a lot of talking to do. But it did. It played out like you saw it in Game 4 and Game 5.
Yeah, I just thought Edmonton had another gear in them. And I knew that, like, Florida is one of the best teams I've ever seen in my however many years I've been watching the sport. And the way they're built, the trades they brought in, the icing on the cake is just getting Marchand for what is now a first-round pick, but was initially a second or third round. But Marchand is playing the best hockey I've ever seen him play. And this is coming from a guy who absolutely hated watching him play forever. He was my least favorite player in the NHL, and I always said, if he'd be clean, he's so good. If he would just get rid of the stupidity.
Is that why you didn't like him?
Yeah, that's exactly why I didn't like him. He would do something great, and then 2 minutes later he'd do something stupid and be in the penalty box. Or upset the balance of the game with a cheap shot, whether it got called or not. It'd upset the balance of the game and get everybody fired up. And, he did as much damage as he did good, and now you're watching him just be the best he's ever been, and he's on the third line. So how do you match that, right? If you're trying to match line for line, you don't want your first line on the ice with their first line. So you typically try to balance 1 for 2. But what do you do when the third line isn't a third line? What do you do when a third line is as good as your second line but producing like your first line? So Edmonton's just
has a different twist and flair.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton's swimming uphill right now. And they're in panic mode. You keep seeing them panic. Oh, what goalie are we going to play? Oh, who are we going to pull out of the lineup? We got to change our D. They're pulling great people out of the lineup because they got beat by better people in a bad matchup. And it's that panic that is giving Florida just an easy path. Like I was saying, this was going to go 7. I now think it's over tomorrow.
Okay, so you think Florida ends it in Florida?
I think Florida ends it in Florida.
I mean, when they go in and get the win in Edmonton, and as you mentioned, Marchand, they kick things off. Marchand with 2 quick goals.
Yeah, unbelievable goals.
And what I didn't understand, he is third line, so he comes in third line and hits those 2?
Yeah. He's a first-line guy. He's been a first-line guy most of his career. Like, probably when he started, he wasn't, but the last several years he's been 1 or 2, right? First or second line. But to come in here and just be like, he is just such a team guy all of a sudden, which wasn't him before, And he's just like, hey, I'm fine being on the third line, and I'm going to be the hardest working guy on the ice every time. That play, that first goal off the faceoff, he beats the entire Edmonton team to the puck. Edmonton won that faceoff. That's the part that gets lost on a lot of people, right? Edmonton won that faceoff. He stepped in. Nurse didn't read the play right. Nurse should have stepped in front of him and taken that ice. And instead, he steals the puck and goes in, splits the D. Everybody thinks he's going wide to look for a pass. And he splits the D and just manhandles the defenseman. I can't remember who it was, but he manhandles that defenseman and then pulls that shot off with two guys coming up on top of him. And that's not what you expect to see out of a third-line guy. And you just can't match it.
I think, was it Bouchard?
Might have been Bouchard.
I thought it was, but just incredible performance by Marchand, and I don't know what you do.
It was Bouchard, yep.
And here's the thing. I don't know, like when I watch Florida play, I don't even know what you can put on the ice in a 7-game series, because that's the difference.
Yeah.
It's the 7-game series. Like a one-off, you could sneak past it. You could luck into it. You could find a way to out-physical them. But they are incredible gamesmen in a 7-game series. They're playing for Game 5 in Game 1. They're playing for Game 4 in Game 2.
Yeah, exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the season, right? Like you're looking, you're finishing every check. You're maybe throwing a little more emphasis on a check that you wouldn't normally, and then you're rushing to every puck. You're trying to win every battle harder than you've ever tried before. And that's weird to say because you know these guys have to play at their best every night. But then you've got to find another gear, and you just got to beat your opponent down with body shot after body shot after body shot, right? You're not looking for the knockout in Game 1. You're looking for a body shot. You don't want them to be the same people in Game 5 that they are in Game 1. And if it goes Game 7, you want them to be just damaged and bruised. And it goes both ways. Like when you're throwing those hits, you're getting a little banged up too. But it's better to give than receive, right?
So now Game 6 going back to Florida. Florida gets the win in Game 5 in Edmonton. Now headed back to Florida. Game 6, Florida leading 3-2. Jay says he thinks it's over coming up tomorrow. I want to know, is it going to be Pickard?
No.
Okay. So you think Edmonton is going to go back to good old staple?
It has to. They have to go back to Skinner. They tried the Pickard thing. It didn't work. And one of the main things that didn't work, and the TNT guys nailed it, having Lundqvist back there breaking down goaltending for you. Yeah. I mean, that's a master class on what's going on. And he called it immediately. He said, Skinner's going to give the team a charge, but the thing that he misses or Picard was going to give him a charge, but the thing that he misses that Skinner has is the ability to play the puck behind the net. And with as fast and as hard as Florida forechecks, because Florida will do a dump and chase. They don't care. They'll try to beat you one-on-one, or they'll do it like a cross-corner dump and chase the puck and try to hit your defenseman. If your goalie doesn't come out and stop that, then you've got guys coming full speed. And that was the difference, right? Picard didn't get behind the net enough to break up that play. Skinner does. Skinner's really good at playing the puck. Plus, he's been phenomenal all the playoffs. To try and hang anything on him is just – but that's what Edmonton and Montreal and Toronto, those markets, if you lose, a lot of fans just hang it on the goaltender. No matter what his save percentage is.
Yeah, they do.
No matter what those odd man rushes, and there's just so many things that add up to goaltenders, and that's what breaks goaltenders in those leagues.
Do you think that Skinner's going to be scrambled eggs, though?
No. He's shown that he's prepared for this market. He's been, kind of jerked around quite a bit. We used to call it the yo-yo because you pump your goalie, then you pull your goalie, then you pump your goalie up, and then you pull your goalie, and you're just yo-yoing with their emotions. But Skinner's shown that he's just pretty mellow, even sitting on the bench for the last game. I think they could have put him back in after they went down 2-0. Or, I think there was a time that they could have put him in and let him shine, and he would have just came back in and been just fine. I think he's more mentally tough than they're giving him credit for. And that's another thing that Lundqvist pointed out during the game is that, he's a great puck player. He's very mentally tough. He's pretty nonchalant during game days, which is either it's a sign that your goalie doesn't care or doesn't get it, or it's a sign that your goalie just believes in himself and doesn't have to have all the other traditions and rituals. Because I know a lot of goalies that you can't look at them in the eye. You can't talk to them. You can't, they're going to go do their thing, and you just got to stay away from them.
Puck Report voice Jay Stevens hanging out with us for the hour, giving us some great insights here into the Stanley Cup Finals. And we are going to get into the number 4 pick that the Mammoth have coming up. We'll get into some of that stuff here in just a little bit. But I got to know, just because I'm trying to find my bearings a little bit, because I just watched Dallas fire their coach after 3 straight finals runs.
Yep.
Was it 3 straight? If Knobloch loses again, let's say he loses in 6, and now this is back-to-back Stanley Cup. Now, this could be a really stupid question, or it could be an interesting question, because it feels like Edmonton fans are done.
Yeah.
They're taking off their jerseys. They got Florida jerseys underneath. You got fans doing dumb things, throwing their jerseys like the Maple Leafs fans did.
Exactly, yeah.
Does Edmonton have space for a guy like Knobloch if he gets ran out in 6?
I think you got to give him a little bit more of a wide berth. And granted, I'm throwing him under the bus here, talking about how he's panicking right now.
Yeah, because the management of the goalie is a sign that he's panicked.
For sure. But this is different than what happened in Dallas. Knobloch's not blaming his goaltending. Knobloch's not he's not pulling his goalies at the wrong time. He's doing the right things at the right time. The panic part is that's that. You got to be the perfect chemist in the science lab, right? When you're dealing with all these lines and all these personalities and all these people, and you're trying to balance all that. And who's going to perform? Who's going to, step up? It's hard to, as a coach, it's hard to always master that. And you watch guys through playoffs, and you'll get guys that'll get better and better and better in playoffs. And then you'll also get guys that you've counted on all regular season that kind of just disappear. They're not doing what they were doing during the regular season. So as a head coach, you got to find a way. And so I don't think he should have been playing with the lines, but I'm just a fireman, so what do I know, right?
Yeah.
But he's panicking a little bit. He's playing with the lines. I don't think he gets fired. I think he's got at least another year at trying to play it out. But it is, like I've told you at the beginning, the pressure cookers, man. Toronto and Edmonton and Montreal, if you're playing in those 3 markets, it's as bad as it can get for a player or a coach. It's the most pressure cooker fishbowl you can be in. Everybody's watching everything you do, and everybody's an expert in those areas too, right? Everybody knows everything about the game, and there's, what do we have in Utah now? 5 podcasts that we talk about the Mammoth.
Mm-hmm.
There's 100 in Edmonton, and they're constantly just, voicing their opinion, and that leaks through. So it's a cooker. Like, management listens to a little bit of, or they'll hear it. Players will hear it, or they'll be a guest on a show, and then they'll hear other stuff. So those guys get a lot of pressure that the rest of the markets don't get. Like Utah doesn't get it. LA might get it a little bit. The Rangers definitely get it, but it's just not like that anywhere else. So I don't know. I guess the fans could tilt it a little bit, but if you're the GM and you hired that guy and you know what you hired for, and you get to the championship, you get to the Cup Finals 2 years in a row, and you lose to one of the best built teams in the history of the NHL, and they really are. The depth is ridiculous on Florida. It's just you don't see that kind of depth. All 4 lines are solid. Bobrovsky, which was they brought him in. They signed him to a long-term contract with the full intention of him being their backup goalie and teaching the kid they drafted first overall. Like they thought that they were going to have this phenomenal goaltender, and that Bobrovsky would just be the senior leadership.
Yeah.
And he's just stolen the show.
He's the postseason show.
Yeah.
And he had a shutout rolling until about 8 minutes left in the third.
He should have gotten a shutout. He didn't get a shutout. I think if he gets those shutouts, he's in the running for the Conn Smythe. Right now it's going to be Marchand, or it should be Bennett. I think Bennett and Marchand are up for the Conn Smythe.
When's the last time we saw a goalie on the Conn Smythe?
The last time I remember is Ron Hextall. But I'll have to double check. But Ron Hextall won it, and when he lost the Stanley Cup.
Oh.
One of the only goalies to ever win when they lost the Stanley Cup. And it was It was ironically to Edmonton.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
that you could win you could win that that level and not win the series.
He was like the only reason that the Flyers were in that series back then.
Well, McDavid won it last year on the losing side. Is that right?
I don't know. I'll have to look that up too. I should know. I watched every minute of it, but McDavid deserves it. I don't. Did he win it last year?
I thought he lost it last year on the losing side of the series.
I'll have to look it up
because I thought I remember him going into the locker room and them calling his name and them thinking he'd come back out of the locker room for the trophy ceremony.
Yeah,
and he didn't.
He won it.
Yeah,
2024.
Yeah, because I remember thinking.
Yeah,
and then somebody told me you just don't do that in the NHL. Any self-glorification.
Nope.
It gets you in a garbage can in the locker room.
100%.
Even as an MVP.
Yep.
I love that about the NHL. It's such a self-governing body.
And even it's even if you're super mad that you lost it and then you're glad that you won the cup or you won the trophy, you can't come out and try to take anything away from the team that just won the cup.
Jay Stevens going to be hanging out with us. We're going to get right into the Mammoth draft situation. They've got the 4th pick. Jazz were unlucky. Mammoth got very, very lucky in the NHL draft lottery end of things. Jumped up to the 4th pick. We're going to talk to Jay about the talent that resides around number 4, the Mammoth ability to maybe move and manipulate the order. Will they jump? Will they move that pick for some product? We'll go through those things with Jay, see how aggressive the Mammoth are going to be and what this season's going to look like when it opens up. I mean, we're not too far out. We're about 4 months away.
Yeah.
It's going to be coming quick.
Draft is coming up on the 27th. It's going to be exciting to see what happens. A lot of free agency stuff's going to happen July 1st. I've written back-to-back articles. I haven't published the other one yet, but the other one's on KSL Sports right now, and about what I think the Mammoth are going to do. And the other one should drop tomorrow, I think, with the podcast. Oh, Wednesday when the podcast drops.
Very good. We come back and we get into the Mammoth draft situation. Where are they going to go with this draft?
Man,
Jay Stevens.
It's going to be fun.
Tells us next.
Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Man, I was wandering around, sitting in some of these Camaros, and you lose track of time pretty quick, Jay.
I guess we both did.
These cars are absolutely gorgeous. I'd love people to come down, just take a look at the showroom. But if you need a new vehicle, John Watson Chevrolet has got you covered. All right, we got the big NHL draft coming up. And the Utah Mammoth jump up to number 4. As you take a look at the current pool of talent, Jay, how sure are you that there's somebody in there that can help the Utah Mammoth? And is it somebody that can help within the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
So that's the big question, right? Because when you go from 14 to 4, you're saying, okay, I'm going to draft an 18-year-old kid that can make the roster right now. And that's the difference. That's why you think it's such a big jump. And there's, your top 5 guys, and the top 5 guys are not agreed upon through most of the NHL. Number 1's pretty much guaranteed, right? Everybody knows that Schaefer's going to probably go number 1. And then it comes down, is it going to be Misa, who's a phenomenal player in the OHL? James Hagens, the thing that sticks out about Hagens, that he could jump into the Mammoth lineup, is that he hasn't been playing in juniors. He's been playing in college. Mm-hmm. So instead of playing, because in juniors you play 16 to 20-year-olds. And in college you're playing guys that already played juniors. And then now they came to college. So you're probably playing 20 to 24-year-olds. There will be some 18-year-olds in there, like Hagens is. But that's the difference. They've already been playing against men. So you judge them based on they're already playing against men, young men, but men. And how are they going to perform now in this roster? And, we've seen it. Cooley and those guys are super young. And take some time to gain their momentum and figure out how to play against, guys with not just bigger bodies, but more experience and a better read of the ice. And at that, you've never played that speed before. Mm-hmm. So to go bigger bodies, bigger speed, or faster speed, I would say that would put him at the top of Utah's look. But you've also got that Porter Martone. That's a physical, gritty. They compare him to Kachuk a little bit.
Okay.
You know?
A little nasty and gnarly, huh?
And I have made no secrets.
His last name's Capone?
Martone.
Oh, Martone.
Porter Martone.
Okay.
And he's been anywhere from up at the top, like people see it, he'd be a top 3. I'm looking at one right now that has him going 6 or 4. The funny thing is that Brady Martin and, the team took him out to dinner. They really like him, and he could be a player they want to draft. But they're not going to – I don't think they're going to take him 4. What could happen, and what I'm starting to feel – more positive about happening. The more I read, the more I watch, the more game tape I watch, the more people from the Mammoth organization I talk to, I feel like they're going to make a trade with and get an established player and move back in the draft a little.
Okay.
So
how do you feel about that?
I feel like that's a great move, depending on who they go with. And as I started researching it more and diving into some rosters, I went through and I'm like, all right, what teams are starting the rebuild process right now? And the biggest team that jumps out is Boston. They just got rid of their captain because they're like, yeah, we're not going to re-sign him. That's a huge deal, right? If they're going to dump their captain, the odds are they can start dumping other guys too. So you could be looking at a Jeremy Swayman going, who they just signed to a long-term deal, that they're probably going to try to dump. So if they want to move up and you could get like a Swayman or a McAvoy, which – man, if you would have said that to me 6 months ago, I would have said, you're out of your mind. But the more I look at it, I think, yeah.
It's available.
Yeah, it's the same thing as when, what's the kid that the Jazz got rid of? That was Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
So everybody loved this kid, right? He's supposed to be, he's our superstar. The Jazz go, you know what? We're rebuilding again. Dump him.
Move him out, yeah.
So if
had new management, new front office, and
right.
said, we're gonna totally change pace.
Yeah, and that kid was supposed to be the future of the Jazz,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So this is the similar thing, and you see that going on with Boston right now. They got rid of their captain. I think other things are on the table. And if you look at Buffalo, and I know everybody's just chomping at the bit for Utah to make some kind of a trade with Buffalo to get Tage Thompson. I don't think he's on the market. But Buffalo has other parts. And Buffalo's been in a rebuild for, I think, 17 years. Like they haven't made the playoffs. So they're rumored to be restarting. Pittsburgh is another team that's going to start the rebuild. I'm not saying we're going to get Crosby or Malkin or any of that stuff, but they have a couple players like Brian Rust, who's a phenomenal 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He's older. So if Utah made a trade with Pittsburgh and steps back in the draft, they pick up Rust, maybe 2 draft picks, and they still get that Martin kid that they want anyway.
Yeah.
So I can see that happening. Again, a month ago, if you would have said that to me, I would have said no way. But the more that this is playing out, the more that it looks like Sam Bennett is going to be a Conn Smythe winner in the Stanley Cup championship and win another cup, the more I think the realness of us having a chance to get Sam Bennett is gone. I think Marchand and Bennett re-sign and stay forever.
I do
in
too.
Florida.
What about Marner?
Marner's. It's up to him, and he's going to pick a team. Teams are going to come after him. We already know Anaheim's going to come after him, and teams are going to find ways to come up with $10 million to bring him in. The team that comes after him with $10 million over 5 to 8 years, that's also a contender right now.
Okay, but how important is it that it's a contender right now?
It's extremely important to him that it's a contender.
Then that could be tough for the Mammoth.
I would see, yeah, because they know we have promise.
Yeah,
they know we're starting to build depth. We have young depth. That's the other reason I can see us getting rid of this 4th overall pick. It just kind of gives us that extra little niche, or the little push to get something bigger.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have to be a young guy that we have to develop. We already have a lot of young guys to develop. We're going to see that now with Simashev and with Boots, and we've got other guys coming in. I still think Cole Beaudoin, even though he's only 18, I think he has a real shot at making the team. Well, he'll be 19. If he doesn't play in the NHL, he has to play back in juniors. He can't go to the AHL. but I think he has a shot at making it just because he's a big body. So I just, once Bennett was off and Marner's off, because Marner's not going to pick Utah. I think Colorado could offer him $7 or $8 million, and he'd go there because
you're in it.
Yeah, he'd be the difference for them.
You got two of the top players in the world on that team.
Absolutely.
So he could just be a perfect piece to get the Avalanche back in it.
And I think
which would make me just disgusted.
I think it'd make a lot of people disgusted.
I don't want to see good things for the Golden Knights or the Avalanche now.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
I just want to see the Mammoths start to grow.
Same.
How far out are we with TJ Ginla?
I still say he's got to play another full year of juniors. I don't think he stands a chance of making the roster this year.
Okay.
I'd say one more year of juniors, probably 1 year in the A.
Oh.
So
maybe 2 more years out.
Yeah.
Because he missed this year with injury, essentially.
Yeah, he played half the season, and then he was out with hip surgery. So he's going to need a year of juniors.
It was an elective surgery, though, right? He elected to.
It was something that they knew that if they didn't fix it now, they'd have to fix it later. Yeah. And it's better to do it now so we can play juniors and not get too banged up.
Jay Stevens of the Puck Report hanging out with us, giving us all kinds of NHL insight. We talked Stanley Cup at the top of the two, giving you some thoughts on that fourth round or fourth overall pick. And I'm more leaning on the end of what you were talking about. I'd like to see him move it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see them get some veteran leadership in, only because I'm just a little bit jaded from last year's picks and like this thought of, well, we got to let it percolate and we're going to have to – it's like, nah, let's get to postseason. Let's see a move that makes this team postseason eligible right now, because I'm getting really impatient.
I think it's going to be Pittsburgh.
After watching this postseason and this Stanley Cup play, I think everybody in this state is hungry to see the Mammoth make that move and start into their postseason, because I also want to see Coach Bear get some real postseason experience as a head coach, and I want to see this front office get more experience. I know Armstrong built the Blues that made a run and won a championship. Yep. I want him to establish that here in Utah. I want to get that started as quickly as possible. We'll come back and wrap this up. Final thoughts on the Mammoth and their draft situation, and also the prediction for tomorrow's Game 6 back in Florida. That's all coming from Jay Stevens next on Hans and Scotty.
Every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, you called Game 4 an Edmonton win in OT. It ended up being an Edmonton win in OT. You called Game 5 saying, no, Edmonton's takes a little low right now. Florida's got momentum, and you were right. Florida goes on. They win Game 5. They've got a 3-2 lead heading into Game 6 back in Florida. Tell me what happens tomorrow in Florida.
It's just going to be more Florida domination. I think the last game, Edmonton showed that they weren't ready to go to the next level. Not all their players were firing on all cylinders. I think you see Skinner back in net, but I still think you see a 5-2 loss, and it's over.
Wow. Florida in 6.
Yeah. I really wanted it to go 7. I've enjoyed this series, but I think it's over.
I'm begging for a Game 7 back in Edmonton.
I hope I'm wrong. wrong.
Oh, my gosh. Florida beating Edmonton in a Game 7 in Edmonton. Watching the fans come undone would just be a masterpiece.
Yeah. I really want to see McDavid win a cup, but, maybe he'll just go to an American team.
How excited do you get for the draft? You excited?
I get pretty excited now. I don't think I really paid that much attention to it until Utah got an NHL team, but now I'm way more vested. I know I'm going to go to the majority of the home games again, and I want to see the Mammoth do well.
Is Bill Armstrong, is he the total powerhouse when it comes to
genius?
Yeah.
He is a genius when it comes to it.
It's just in his hands.
That's why last year I thought I knew what was going to happen. And and then they just went a complete different way. And that's why I wrote this article last week, and I put it out. I'm like, this is what everything in my being tells me to do. And then I went home and I'm like, he's not going to do that. I'm like, I need to write another article. So I did it. I went through each team, and you want to know what I think is going to happen?
Yeah,
I think we're going to trade either with Pittsburgh, which would give them our 4th pick, would give us a solid top 6 forward, probably not a center like we need, but probably a wing like Brian Rust, or who else? Ricard Raquel, and then that gives us the 10th pick. So we still get that kid they like. I don't know that they actually like him as much as we said. Yeah, and we get a veteran that immediately helps us balance out.
You said Rust has a couple of finals?
Yeah, 2 cups.
Wow.
So, or Boston. And I think Boston makes more sense to me. The pick's a little bit less, but you could pick up a guy like Charlie McAvoy.
Because Boston's back, 16?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just makes it they're 17. They're 17. Okay. So it just makes it – those 2 teams make it feel to me like they're ready to dish off a big name, give us 2 picks for our 1 pick. So we'd get if we get Brian Rust and then we get Raquel, we get their draft pick and then a second-round draft pick. And we just add to our stock. But then that balances us out. That helps us right now so that we make the playoffs, so that the Mammoth make the playoffs right now. And we get that kind of experience for that team.
Well, that's what you need, because you need to start giving the Coolies and Kellers of the world, you need to give them that postseason experience and let them start to build. Jay, you're the best. Thanks for coming out to Ogden, hanging out in this showroom. Doesn't suck to do a show.
It's amazing.
That's it for us. We'll hand it off to JJ and Alex coming up.